My name is Karen. I married my husband, whom I met at a university mixer at the age of 22, and we are now in our 8th year of marriage. We both love our jobs, and we don't have any children yet. We do have some desire to have kids eventually, but in this day and age, we wanted to work full-time as long as we could. Our jobs kept us both busy, and while we couldn't call it a life of misconnections, we both often worked late, and given that we've been together for 12 years since our university days, there wasn't exactly a daily mood of eager baby making. What's more, we currently live in New York, but my husband has told me that he intends to take over his family business in the future, so it's decided that we will return to his hometown in rural Nebraska. I had agreed to this. I was starting to think that it was time to start considering our future. I was, of course, feeling some pressure due to my age, but for now, I wanted to prioritize my current life as a career woman in the city. I get along well with my husband's parents, and I just had a phone call with my father-in-law the other day. Normally, in-laws would be asking about when we are going to have children, but they don't. Instead, they always show their consideration by saying things like, "Karen, our son can be quite selfish, isn't he? Thank you for looking after him." I felt that even if we move to rural Nebraska in the future, we can get along well with his parents. So for now, I was determined to fully enjoy my life and work in the city. Then, one day, as usual, when I returned from work, unusually, my husband had come home earlier. Even when I had to work overtime, I usually return home by 8 p.m. at the latest, including the time I spent shopping for dinner. And no matter how late it gets, I am home by 9 p.m. But my husband sometimes comes home past midnight, so I couldn't help but blurt out, "Oh, that's unusual." That day, I did some shopping at the supermarket and got back home at 9 p.m. It's rare for my husband to be home at this hour, and the atmosphere was gloomy. He was sitting on the couch, silent and brooding. Had something happened? "Welcome home." He doesn't even respond when I talk to him. "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" I tried talking to my husband, who was sitting on the couch, several times, but he didn't respond, so I decided to start preparing dinner. We rarely had the opportunity to have dinner together, except on special occasions, but I always prepared a light meal that he could have whenever he came home. I was proud of myself for being such a good wife. That day's menu was loaded potato soup, steak, mac and cheese with some broccoli. I'm used to making quick meals, so I whipped it up in no time. "Dinner's ready!" Upon reflection, it has been quite a while since we sat down and had dinner together. My husband silently moved his food from the plate to his mouth. "Hey." His silence throughout the dinner was unnerving. I was getting worried. Had something happened? Could he be cheating? Or was he fired from his job? Or maybe he's feeling unwell due to some illness. Worried, I put my fork down and asked, "What's wrong? You're awfully quiet. If something has happened, you should tell me. If there's something you want to say, then say it clearly." I confronted him in a strong tone. Then my husband, with a bitter expression on his face, reluctantly opened his mouth. "Well, I have a favor to ask." "What? A favor, huh?" I had thought he was going to say something bad. I was relieved. As long as it wasn't anything too terrible, I thought I'd listen to his request. "You have your parents' place in the countryside, right?" "Yes." He brought up my parents' place in the countryside out of the blue. I was surprised. Then, shocking words followed. "My father's company it has incurred some debt." "What? Your father's company?" My father-in-law runs a large printing company. He has dozens of employees, and my husband's family home is known as a prestigious household in the countryside. "Would you mind if we used your family home as collateral?" "What did you say?" Suddenly asked such a thing, I didn't know how to respond. My father is a normal salaried worker. My mother works part-time. My sister is working as a nurse in a local hospital, and somehow the three of them are making ends meet modestly. Even if it's for the sake of my husband's family, why does my parents' house have to serve as collateral? Sorry to say this, but your family's house it's normal. Unlike mine, right? Normal, unlike his. What does that mean? Indeed, compared to the family of my husband, who runs a large local business, we are an ordinary family. In truth, my family is in a tight spot right now. If things keep going this way, we're going to bounce a check for the second time. That would lead to bankruptcy. We desperately need a loan of about $500,000. No way. I was shocked by the amount, but I was more surprised by my husband's next words. We come from a special family that runs a business, but your family is just the typical one, after all. Taking a risk wouldn't matter that much, would it? Even if something were to happen, you could always rent an apartment and live there as a family. Everyone in your family is working, right? You guys can manage that, can't you? Excuse me? We come from a family of different social status. There's a huge difference between my family going bankrupt and yours going bankrupt. I'm sorry, but can you hear me out just this once? Do you even realize what you're saying? Ignoring me, my husband continued. I hate to say this, but I could have married a woman of higher status than you. Someone like a wealthy daughter. Why would you say that? Despite that, I married an ordinary woman, like you. You must have been thrilled, right? It's like marrying into money. Be grateful for your luck of marrying a man like me, and listen to me in times like these. It's true that when I married my husband, both of my parents were happy that I was marrying the only son of a business owner. But they were also very apologetic, saying, we somehow feel like we're not on the same level. But I didn't marry my husband because I was aiming for a rich man. We both loved reading, met at a book club, and decided to get married because we found love for each other. But deep down, I couldn't believe he had been thinking like this. My husband's abusive words became more and more harsh. Your sister! Why is she still living in the house she was born in? She's a nurse, isn't she? She should get married and leave home already. If it's just the two of your parents, they can easily rent an apartment. It's cheaper in the countryside. Enough is enough. I started to lose my temper. That house was left to us by our grandparents, and our parents built it with their sweat and tears while raising us sisters. You're saying it doesn't matter what happens to it? But my husband wasn't listening anymore. Look, none of that matters. Don't bother me with your small-scale stories. Working to raise you two sisters. Huh. From the beginning, you and I were a mismatch. What? Call it a folly of youth, but during college, I got caught up in love and ended up choosing you. I should have looked at reality more. Even now, we're both working, right? If I had married a more sophisticated lady, I would have had the support of her parents, and she could have been a housewife. Wait, are you even looking down on me for working? And it's not like you're at some top-notch company. You're desperately clinging to a regular job, looking so poor. Do you even know what you look like? You say you're busy with work. I don't know what kind of job that is, but you rush around every morning to bring home such a low salary. You even cut your hair short because of it. You were cute when we first met because you were young, but now you lack charm. How did this conversation about using my family home as collateral end up turning into him bad-mouthing my family, and even my appearance? Even if his emotions are getting the best of him because of his family situation, he's far crossed the line. Still, my husband went on. Some say working women are attractive, but you're not one of them. I would much prefer a woman who lives a leisurely, elegant life, like my mom. Classy, you know? Why would you say that? I couldn't hold back my anger anymore as my husband began to completely negate me. If you don't want to get divorced, put up your parents' house as collateral. I'm still young and have the right to choose another woman. It's me who's going to climb up the social ladder from now on. Plus, I'll be the president of the company in town someday. If you don't want to be dumped, just listen to what I say. The man spewing these abusive words in front of me was no longer the husband I knew. What a horrible man he had turned out to be. My family should get saved over yours. I was shocked, realizing that this must have been his true feelings all along. Because my normally quiet husband, a man who's usually hard to read, was being unusually vocal. Something inside me snapped. Hey, what happened with that matter? My husband asked me one morning. I hadn't spoken to him at all since then. Perhaps he had started to feel rushed, or maybe he had simply decided to stop hiding his true nature after openly expressing his long-held thoughts about me. His attitude remained incredibly arrogant. I'll give you an answer tonight. Upon hearing my response, he left the house. I filled in all the necessary items on the divorce papers I had brought from the city hall, signed them, stamped them, left them on the dining table, and then left the house. That evening, "Hey, what's this? What are you trying to do?" My husband, who might have expected me to consent to the collateral talk, had come home earlier than me. He was flabbergasted, looking at the divorce papers on the table. "You see these papers?" I responded coolly. "What are you thinking? Now's not the time for this kind of charade. I've told you, my family's in a pinch, haven't I? Are you really that stupid?" I ignored his offensive, stupid remark. It hurts to think that my father-in-law's company is in a crisis. But I just couldn't forgive this man for taking advantage of the situation to express his true feelings. "You're just an ordinary woman. I should have married a richer daughter." He had been carrying on with our married life all this while, thinking such things. And although he always comes home late, he could come home early in times of emergency. I hadn't noticed, or even thought about it before, but maybe he had had one or two affairs under the guise of work. But at this point, I didn't even care. Once I realized that he had been looking down on me and my family all along, there was no way we could continue our marriage. "Hey, don't mess with me!" He approached me, his demeanor threatening as if he might strike me, but I didn't flinch. "I've made up my mind. Now you need to sign this, too," I calmly stated. After that, I thought there might be a court battle involving lawyers, but in the end, he simply agreed to the divorce after some time. Since I had presented the divorce papers, I quickly packed my things and escaped to a temporary apartment. Perhaps he gave up. Regretting what he'd already spat out was too late. He had clearly insulted me, and not just me, but my family environment as well. What's been said can't be unsaid, and I didn't give him the chance to undo it, because that was his true feelings. After the divorce, I worked hard at the job that my husband had ridiculed as low-paying. Fast forward a few years. On a Saturday afternoon, a day off from work, I got a call from my former father-in-law. The divorce was so sudden, we didn't have the opportunity to discuss anything with my ex-husband's family, because until that incident, I had been nothing but a good daughter-in-law. "Ah, Karen! Long time no see." "Long time no see, father-in-law." I was relieved by the cheerfulness in my father-in-law's voice. I tried to start the conversation, but my father-in-law interrupted me. "I'm sorry about that time. I've heard a lot from my son." Yes, my father-in-law seemed to have completely forgiven my impoliteness. "I think you know the situation, but since then, our company has recovered, and my son has returned to our hometown to help with the business. Is that so? At least that was good. Even though they were the family of my divorced husband, I didn't wish misfortune on his parents because they were not the one to be blamed. My former father-in-law continued. Well, basically, my son came crawling back to us after you divorced him because that hurt his ego so much. And, well, you might not be interested, but I wanted to talk about our son. Yes? I had no choice but to listen, since I couldn't just hang up the phone. Since that time, he's been really down in the dumps. He's simply unmanageable. Really. I don't like speaking ill of my own son like this, but he's got this big attitude, like, I'm the son of the owner of this company, and he's alienating the employees. His ego has grown even larger since he moved back from New York. And he's just not well liked at all. I see. He came back out of nowhere and started acting all high and mighty. We don't know what to do with him. I can somewhat imagine the situation. After all, he had such a low opinion of me, his own wife. He probably looks down on the employees of his father's company as mere servants. Several years have passed since then, and he's likely seated as an executive director. His personality has probably warped further, making it impossible to handle him. I see. We caused a lot of trouble for you. Anyway, Karen, this might be odd for me to say, but I hope you find true happiness. I know my son has been a real handful. That's not true at all. I hope you stay well, too. After hanging up the phone, I was relieved to know that his company was doing fine, and I couldn't help but envision what my ex-husband might be like now. But my imagination only lasted for a minute or two. Right after, I received a text from my current boyfriend. I've chosen the restaurant for tonight. Here. There was a link to an upscale sushi restaurant in the iMessage. Got it. See you at 6 p.m. I replied, and started thinking of what to wear for our date tonight. Since then, I've worked hard and been promoted, and quite unusually for my company, I've made it to the executive's position, a rare achievement for women. My salary has increased considerably from before, and I'm comfortably living on my own. I've been able to save money successfully, and I was even able to gift a new car to my parents back home. My younger sister found a good man, got married, and is living happily in our hometown. And currently, I'm dating a man I met through work with the intention of getting married. He's a kind-hearted and wonderful man who, like me, comes from a normal upbringing.